But there was no credible threat to speak of that would have suggested there should have been a warning around this event. This was a lone individual who got on a subway, rode next to people on a subway, walked the streets into the concert facility with this device, and was able to detonate it and kill 20 people and injure 50 others. Nobody seemed to notice anything or reported anything. Nothing was out of the ordinary, which leads us to what I think the real lesson is this is not done. There are still evil people in this world, and I don't care for those of you who just think everybody's worth saving and everybody's just misunderstood. There are evil people in this world who want to do evil things to innocent people in this world, and it's not just here in the United States. It's not just in Trump's America. It's in the UK. It's in Nice, France. It's in overseas. It's in Libya. It's in Pakistan. It's in Jordan. It's in the world. And these people want to do horrible things. Now, evidently ISIS has come out and claimed responsibility for this young man, saying that they were behind this attack. So we know that not only are there evil people in this world, but there are evil people who are working together in this world to attack non-evil people in this world. And until we wise up, and until we quit being so divisive that we can actually agree with Donald Trump for once when he says that we're to run them out, push them out, until we can actually wise up and say that maybe it's not such a bad idea, maybe it should not be such a bad idea for us to stand against evil. Maybe. So that's what happened in Manchester, England, and that's how we lead the flop today. Horrible news just to open up a show on. But that's my, the man up moment on that issue right there. Are these people are still out there, and you need to be vigilant. And if you're here in the United States where you actually have the right to bear arms and you have the right to protect yourself, I would exercise it. And I do exercise it, and I wish you would too. Because you never know when some seemingly innocent person's next to you on the bus or the subway with an IED full of nails with ill intent to kill small children at a concert. You never know. Absolutely never know. Would a firearm have stopped this? I'm not saying that. But I am saying that to self-protect, whether it's as a nation or as an individual or protect your family, is not a bad idea. Take measures to protect those who you feel need to be protected. Again, on the flop, let's talk a little bit about Israel. Donald Trump did set a very harsh tone on the whole ISIS terrorism thing while overseas in Saudi Arabia and Israel. Both of those trips were unprecedented to some degree. While in Israel, he visited the Wailing Wall, otherwise known as the Western Wall, which is a very controversial site. They say that the Temple Mount is the home of 16 different religions. We all know the big three. We know the history of the Jewish faith with regard to that location in Israel. We know the history of the Christian faith, which is a derivative of the Jewish faith. And we also know the history of Islam, with it being the third holiest site in Islam, the Dome of the Rock Mosque being on top of the Temple Mount. Donald Trump visited the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the kind of historical place that Christ's death is celebrated. It's where allegedly it took place. There's some controversy around whether it's on the actual spot or not, but he did visit that church, which honors that commitment. I found it interesting that Benjamin Netanyahu, if you have not been paying attention to the news, actually Benjamin Netanyahu has wanted to visit the Western Wall with Donald Trump, and the Trump team actually recommended not doing that, just letting him go himself, because they didn't want it to seem like it was a political statement in Israel, that it was much more of a personal religious venture for him. I don't know how successful that was. I know him and Bibi talked later on the phone, but for the most part, this trip overseas I think it came at a good time. I actually was very fond of some of the things that our president, our commander-in-chief, said while he was overseas. I was very fond of some of those things. I understand the investigation with Russia is taking place, and even now the former CIA director is testifying on Capitol Hill with regards to the Trump ties to the Russians, stating he was very concerned about the associations between the two. People have even criticized perhaps the relationship with Jared Kushner and what's happening with Saudi Arabia, brokering a deal there. I understand that there are things taking place back here at home. But the trip in and of itself to me was successful. I think we have a man who extremely volatile internationally, who actually made his way across the globe to a foreign country where there's obviously hostility, who made some very poignant statements about standing against radicalism and terrorism, but also embracing the idea that we have to coexist to a great degree. I think he was measured in those statements, but also think he was very direct. We know that his statements are back here at home, and most of the news media has been drawing contrasts between what he said overseas and what he says when he's back here at home. It's been drawing contrast between whether or not he's consistent and how he feels and what he says. That's valid. If there's one thing Donald Trump is, it's he's inconsistent with what he says and what he does. And perhaps he talks out of his rear. But what he said overseas was good stuff, and if he acts on it, I think most of the Americans and most of the foreign individuals who are listening to him and listening to the words of our Commander-in-Chief will find him favorable in the years to come. That's all I really have to say about the overseas trip. We do have something coming up later. We'll talk a little bit about Ivanka's involvement in Saudi Arabia, because I believe that was actually a monumental moment that took place, and it's trending all over the socials. But last on the flop today, let's talk sports. And sports is an important part of the world right now. First and foremost, let's give props to the Predators. The Predators are winning and winning big. I think they got one more game to go in the showdown. I believe they lead that series right now with 6 games. And the Nashville Predators, our local team, actually doing quite well. It's funny as I watch all of you trolls on the socials criticizing people for being temporary Predator fans. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't follow hockey too well. I've been to live hockey games. I like hockey. I can enjoy something. I don't necessarily have to live and breathe it every week to enjoy it. And I enjoy hockey. You know, I know enough to follow the game. And honestly, I learned the game of hockey by playing a Nintendo game that was a hockey game. That's how I learned the rules of hockey. But this is our local team. There's nothing wrong with bandwagon fans in a moment like this where the Nashville Predators are capable of pulling off this victory. So kudos to the Preds. We're all with the Predators right now. We're big fans, with the exception of maybe Rob Alderman, which I think he's a Blackhawks fan. But go Nashville Predators. We're proud of you guys. Bring home the Stanley Cup to Tennessee. That'd be great. Have it here in Tennessee. Someplace in the South. That's a pretty big deal. Hockey is a northeastern sport. Hands down a northeastern sport. It is meant for colder climates. To have Nashville's team doing so well is pretty monumental. But that's not the only thing taking place in sports right now. The NBA Finals are underway, and his picture's not up on the screen here, but Steph Curry and the Warriors have been the first team ever to win, I believe is either 10 or 12 straight to get to the championship game, undefeated to the championship game. LeBron and his Cavs are not quite there. He's wearing a Miami jersey here, but he's with the Cavaliers right now. But here's the big debate. It happens all basketball season. For those of you who aren't into sports, you can tune out for a little bit, but if you'll listen to me for a moment, I think that there's an understanding about how people think about sports, because I think the competition that we often see in sports has bled over to politics, except for when the game's over in sports, we tend to relax a little bit. I mean, it still gets hot and it still gets temperamental, but we relax in sports. We don't relax in politics. We feel like too much is at stake. So the big debate is LeBron the GOAT? GOAT stands for greatest of all time. It's an acronym, greatest of all time, G-O-A-T, the GOAT. The GOAT has always been Michael Jordan since the 80s. And people constantly compare the greats that passed through basketball to Michael Jordan. And recently this week, Charles Barkley, another great of himself, made the statement that LeBron, by numbers and by performance and by all the things that he's doing, is really at the Kobe level of greatness, not at the Michael Jordan level. And people want to draw little memes up and break it down and say, well, at 27 and 28, LeBron was better than Jordan, had more championships than Jordan, had more championships than Kobe Bryant. And the supporters of Kobe Bryant, who played for the Lakers, and Michael Jordan look back and say, yeah, but they played with one team and stayed with one team and built a team. They didn't just go to the best supporting cast. And that's what's taking place right now in this GOAT discussion. For those of you who don't understand, for all of you crazy LeBron's the best player of all time, you'll know that I'm not a huge LeBron James fan. I like to watch him play. I think he's fine. I don't have anything against him. But I think he muscles his way into points. There's not much finesse with him. Now, I will say in the playoffs, I've seen more finesse from him. He's taken shots that normally like a Steph Curry would take, normally a Tristan Thompson. But I'm seeing more finesse from him. But LeBron's always had this supporting cast, and supporting casts that have led him to championships. There was times with former teams that Ray Allen took the game-winning shot, or Kyrie Irving took the game-winning shot with the Cavs, or even when Dwayne Wade took the game-winning shot with Miami to get him over the top. If there's one thing about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant that's different from LeBron James in the playoffs is something that Stephen A. Smith said about this scenario, is that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant were always the one who brought the team over the top when it had to happen. They were always the one with the ball in their hands. They were always the difference. So I don't care about all the MVP awards that you get during the regular season. I think when you look at greatest of all time, you have to look at what they contribute, and Kobe and Michael consistently contributed the game-winning shots, the game-winning decisiveness of what took place. They did. LeBron's always had supporting casts that would pick up where he left off. And we saw this the other night because the Cavs have been killing the Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics win in Game 3. Solid win in Game 3. Solid win in Game 3 because LeBron was MIA. Absolutely absent from the game. But, some people point to that to make him the greatest of all time. Who knows? All I'm saying is I still think Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time until I see a little bit more out of LeBron James as far as finesse. I think he's at Kobe level. Kobe, the Black Mamba, obviously one of the greats of basketball, many championships, many MVPs, and helped build the Lakers to victory over time. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to the turn in the river. We're going to talk a little bit about Ivanka's $100 million solicitation from the Saudis to support female entrepreneurship. And then we're going to talk a little bit about snowflake protests. I told you I don't like that word snowflake, but it's what everybody understands. You're listening to Man Up America right here on WTNB and Talk 101.3. We'll be back in a moment.
Dr. J. Adam here, talking to all the gentlemen out there. For those of you with wives, girlfriends, even mothers, which would make all of you, you need to call 423-472-8887 and talk to the good folks at Bliss Day Spa. Nothing says I love you like the special treatment, the VIP treatment of the services of Bliss Day Spa. Call them today, 423-472-8887. Tell them the good doctor sent you from Man Up America.
J. Adam, have you ever felt kicked in the gut when trying to get approved for a loan or a home mortgage? Then go by and see my friends at Home Mortgage Solutions for a free approval. They don't hand them out like candy and just tell you what you want to hear, but they dig deep to find the solutions you need to get qualified. They have competitive rates, and with over 80 years of experience under one roof, you don't have to go anywhere else. They're never too busy, so just give them a call, 423-339-8086, or visit HomeMortgageSolutionsLLC.com.
You do things every minute of every day to protect them. Don't stop now. Woodman Life Family Term Life Insurance covers your entire family with a monthly premium that won't increase for the first 20 years. Guaranteed.
It's reassuring to know that when you retire, Woodman Life will be there with you, providing insurance protection and financial security so that you can sit back, relax, and enjoy your retirement, knowing that you and your family are safe and secure. For more information,
423-790-2847.
Woodman Life, standing strong for generations.
Okay, folks, nothing too elaborate with this commercial right here. The Venue Creekside is located in Cleveland, Tennessee, and is here for your next event. Most people rent a facility and then they spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars bringing in the things they need to make it an awesome event. The Venue Creekside has it all on site. It's included tables, chairs, linens, everything you need in multimedia from sound, lights, and video. It's all right there. Consider it for your next corporate meeting. Right there at the Venue Creekside, located at the Village Green. So get more information at thevenuecreekside.com or call them 473-9668. If you mention Man Up America, save an extra $100 on your rental.
After I was injured due to the negligence of a careless driver, it mattered to me that I received the compensation that I was entitled to. When it matters to me, I choose Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson, attorneys at law, when it matters.
When I was accused of a crime, my liberty was hanging in the balance. My legal rights mattered to me, so I went to the professionals at Logan Thompson Law. Logan Thompson, attorneys at law, when it matters.
Welcome to Nissan of Cleveland. Stop by our showroom today to take a look at the amazing vehicles we have for sale, like the brand new Nissan Maxima and the V8 Titan. Check out our Imagination Bar where you can view our entire inventory in real time. Also, our dedicated service specialists are here to ensure your vehicle is repaired and on the road in no time. Here at Nissan of Cleveland, our sonic pricing ensures that you receive a fair, competitive price on your new vehicle, and we back that with a lifetime warranty. Nissan of Cleveland, located just off exit 20 on I-75. Welcome to Nissan.
My passion is outdoors, but my knees reached a point where I just couldn't enjoy it as well. So I had knee replacement surgery at Tenova. My experience was excellent. My new knees are great. They work well, I have no pain, and I'm able to do all the things that I enjoy.
If joint pain is affecting your life, find out how Tenova can help. Come to a free joint pain seminar. Register today at tenovaortho.com.
The Cleveland Housing Authority's mission is to provide affordable, safe, and sanitary housing opportunities. Visit www.clevelandhousingauthority.com or call us 423-479-9659.
When I was denied my Social Security benefits, I turned to the legal professionals at Logan Thompson Law. When it mattered to me, I chose Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson, attorneys at law, when it matters.
The Michelin Tire rebate sale starts March 22nd. You'll get a great price here at Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ooltewah, plus $70 back from Michelin.
And a free tank of gas.
That's right. Buy 4 Michelin tires here, get $70 back from Michelin, and I'll kick in a free tank of gas up to $30. You won't get that anywhere else. We are the Michelin men here at Steve Ray's Midnight Oil. Call for your price, 643-1111, and get your Michelin tires here.
First, I want to thank you all for volunteering to help Habitat for Humanity build a house. Your participation means so much. We couldn't do this without you. So, any questions? Come on, don't be shy. No such thing as a silly question, guys.
Donate and purchase from the Habitat Restore. That helps build houses.
No, you don't need to be able to hold a hammer. Anyone else?
All right, and we're back here on Men Up America. You're listening to the good Dr. J. Adam. Talk 101.3 The Buzz, WTNB Television right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. That's Charter Channel 5, Comcast 210, Digital TV Dial 27.1, Facebook Live, and soon to be YouTube Live. Ooh, ah. For those of you who are listening to us in Radio Land, I do apologize. We're going to have some video coming up here, but hopefully you can hear the audio on it as we show you. We'll show you some video clips here later. I'll try to narrate them for you. But if you're interested in those video clips, you can Google any of them. But I will try to put those tags on our Facebook page, facebook.com/manuptalk. So, before we get to the turn, Running for Our Children to Nova Healthcare. This is by looks like Cook's Food Stores, Vocker, Pro Coat, Aqua Shield, Assured Alarms, Premier Tire and Auto Service. This is on June 3rd, and this is a benefit. You can go to facebook.com/running-for-our-children and get more information about this 5K. The cost is $25 if you do it before May 21st, which that ship has sailed. So I think it's probably a little bit more than that, but you can go ahead and register. That's a $5 pancake breakfast. Runners eat free. This is at the Greenway Park here in Cleveland, Saturday, June 3rd. Again, go to facebook.com/running-for-our-children. Running for Our Children. And I think you can register online, but it's too long for me to even try to read out. So definitely tune in that, Running for Our Children. Let's get to the turn. All right, so today on the turn, it was an interesting turn of events this weekend in which, according to CNN and other major news outlets, Ivanka Trump, not Ivana, Ivanka Trump, the daughter, was able to broker a donation by the Saudis toward the World Bank, a fund inspired by her, as it says, at the World Bank, not run by her, to provide female entrepreneurs with financial support in the form of capital and access to networking and financial markets, something Trump says she anticipates will be important for the future growth of women. Now, the irony behind this is Saudi Arabia places severe restrictions on women's rights, probably more than anywhere in the world, and participation in society, including prohibiting them from driving or doing finances. So the creation of the fund that solicits donations from countries like this and championed by Donald Trump's daughter, one of his closest advisors, kind of opens the president up to hypocrisy according to media outlets. Now, here's the big concern. For many of you who remember on the campaign trail, Donald J. Trump is one to tweet. That hasn't quite stopped. So let's go and let's look at a tweet here by Donald J. Trump from the campaign trail, which simply says, Saudi Arabia and many of the countries that gave vast amounts of money to the Clinton Foundation want women as slaves and to kill gays. Hillary must return all money from such countries. This is Donald Trump, June 13th, 2016. So Donald says donations from countries like this, that the Clinton Foundation should return the money. Promptly, liberal news sources jumped all over this. Look at the hypocrisy. Donald said this about the Clinton Foundation, and now Ivanka has brokered this deal, which would allow $100 million to go to a fund that she inspired. And this is why I think that is much ado about nothing. I get the comparison you're drawing on Donald Trump's tweet. I get it. And I get that at the source of it, Donald Trump was making a criticism about people's espoused behavior and their behavior of intent. For those of you who aren't familiar with those terms, simply that you need to practice what you preach, right? And that essentially a gift was to the Clinton Foundation to take the money from a country that does those kind of things is to indirectly endorse that country. Here's a couple of key differences, and here's our man up moment with regards to this fund. I would think that any fund that would take money Scripture talks about taking up the wealth of the sinner to lay up for the righteous, that would take money from bigots and put it into a fund to promote equality in female entrepreneurship would be praised. For her to go into a country like Saudi Arabia and to convince them to give that amount of money for an initiative like that, to me, was a pretty good thing. I know we've lost track of being, civil discourse is dead. We can't agree that anything's good anymore, that anything was a positive move, that anything was progress. We can't agree on that. I understand. I get it. But I look at this and I go, kudos to her. Great initiative. Another key difference here between what he was saying about the Clinton Foundation was Saudi Arabia and these countries had given money to the Clinton Foundation, but the Clinton Foundation was operated and managed by the Clintons. So for them to be able to donor direct that money, for those of you familiar with how money flows, donor direction just means whoever eventually gets to decide how it's spent. The money given to the Clinton Foundation would be decided by the Clintons on how it was going to be spent. This World Bank fund that the $100 million Ivanka solicited is not directed by Ivanka Trump. She doesn't get to decide how that money's spent. She doesn't get to decide specifically which females it goes to or how it's specifically used. It's inspired by her, and it's something that she supports as kind of part of her initiative. We are not blind to the fact that the first daughter of the United States is behaving in such a capacity as typically the First Lady. For those of you who are familiar with history, the First Lady of the United States always had a cause or something that they pushed and motivated. For Michelle Obama, it was childhood obesity. I think it was literacy with Laura Bush. Many others in the past. Everybody kind of had their pet initiative. And Ivanka has her own pet initiative. And it is this mobilization of women's rights. And it has a lot to do with female entrepreneurship, women's rights to work, and maternity. All of these things have been pretty commonplace for most Americans to say that's probably a good thing. I like my daughters having the same opportunities as my sons. I like those things. Usually we agree on them. But when something like this happens, we are so taste adverse to anybody with the last name Trump that we cannot see the good. We are willing to not only throw the baby out with the bathwater, we want to drown the baby in the bathwater before we throw both of them out. This is a good thing. This donation was good. All better that it came from countries that don't practice this. All the better that it comes from. For me, that's like when drunk drivers have to pay for the flowers to go along the interstate. No better people to pay for it than people who cause us harm and danger, right? Same thing with Saudi Arabia. My 2 cents on the issue, but that's your main up moment. It's not like the donations to the Clinton Foundation, even though Donald Trump spouts off at the mouth, and we see that stuff come through Twitter, and I've been very critical of Donald Trump and his use of Twitter. The measure of this tweet to what took place with Ivanka is a stretch, people, an absolute stretch. And if you're not angry about that right now, just wait till we get done with the river. All right, so on the river, here's what's coming up on the river. I told y'all it was going to get crazy in here. If you're listening in Radio Land, we are going to get to the videos here shortly. When we get to the videos, I'll try to kind of watch them to make sure that you can tell what's taking place. But here's the big news on the river today. This past weekend at a commencement at Notre Dame, a healthy portion of the graduates chose to walk out of the commencement speaker's address, who happened to be the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. So Mike Pence was giving the address at Notre Dame, and I wouldn't say it was a healthy portion. Most of the students stayed, but it wasn't 1 or 2 people that walked out. It was a good chunk of folks that chose to walk out of the address that was taking place there. So, and I'm trying to find the video here. I know I had it earlier. I put it in the wrong folder here. I want to show you this clip of them walking out. Here we go. So here's a clip of them walking out of Mike Pence's address. And for those of you who are in Radio Land, you may be able to hear Mike Pence speak in some crowd noise, but students are walking out of his address. So he's come to the podium. Most students are clapping. Heads start to turn and I'll try to count them here, see if we can't get a good scope of those who actually walked out of this address here. Okay, some in front. There's, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Thank you all.
The whole back row. So let's say 100 students. I think that's being generous. Because there was maybe 25 on this side and a couple more there. So maybe 100
Father
students.
Jenkins.
And a lot of people praise them for their actions and what was taking place there. But walking out of Mike Pence's address was what these students did. Now, before I dig in too deep about, we can all agree that there are certain, there's a certain amount of respect that we tend to pay our leaders. And I just noticed that one gal with a rainbow-colored top of her cap and gown turned her back to the podium while other people walked out. So it wasn't just those who walked out. Someone actually stood on the front row and turned her back to the podium as a form of protest rather than walking out. Here's my concern with walking out is I think this is just an example. Here's a man-up moment right now of where we are in civil discourse. It's where we are in civil discourse. We no longer listen. We no longer sit in an uncomfortable situation. We no longer can be around those with whom we disagree and even those whom we don't trust. We constantly find ourselves walking out of very difficult conversations and issues. And it's just not healthy. We talk about the death of civil discourse. If we continue to walk out of things, there will be no discourse. You cannot continually step away from discussion and understand, A, what the other side's doing, and B, position yourself to speak freely. If you exit the room, your voice is gone. It's no longer there. It's no longer there. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. It's a valid form of protest, and these students didn't do anything wrong, and I agree. They shouldn't be punished. They shouldn't not get their degrees. What they did wasn't wrong, but when are they going to walk out of their job because they don't agree with their boss? What other things are they going to walk out of? What other things are they going to exit in their life because they've been told that the appropriate response to disagreement, maybe even angry disagreement, is to exit without discourse? That's my concern. These are college graduates from Notre Dame who are supposed to go and they're going to change the world. Isn't that the essence of every commencement speech? That you are going to go and you are going to change the world. Now, if everybody thinks I'm just honing in on this one thing and it's one thing specific and, well, this happened there. No, it's happening nationwide. We've seen what's happened at UC Berkeley with them being able to absolutely alienate and keep off campus any conservative voice. Whether it's the Milo dude or whether it's Ann Coulter or anyone else, that there's a sense that rather than listen, that rather than debate, rather than engage, rather than fight, we're going to just simply box out. We're going to block people. We're going to remove. You know, I'm seeing more and more liberal media talking about removing freedoms of speech. We need to remove freedom of speech from certain people. Certain people aren't allowed to say things. Certain people aren't allowed to do things. Certain people aren't allowed to believe anything. That we've come to that point that rather than change minds, we seek and squash. Now, this goes back to what I've been saying for weeks on this program, is that as civil discourse has died, this is now a battle. It's a war. And it's warring from both sides because since we cannot debate and convince one another, since we're not engaged in the civil discourse to be able to change someone else's mind, the only result that you're left with is sheer battle. You have to vanquish your opponent. And that's what both sides have set themselves up for. And that's where we are right now in society. We're not going to see any improvement until one side's vanquished in the other. And that's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for people who sit in the middle, independents right now. What do? What side do they choose? The line's drawn in the sand. The liberals and conservatives aren't talking to each other. What do? One must vanquish the other for us to even move forward. And if you think this is just one example, let me show you a little situation at a university in which Ben Shapiro, which is a very conservative talking head, was speaking to a friendly group. This wasn't a commencement. This wasn't a setting in which people had to attend. This wasn't a requirement. This was a voluntary discussion by him in which he came and was doing a talk on social justice. And he was giving the conservative, for lack of a better term, presentation on why social justice is a misguided notion. And so people came voluntarily to hear him. And essentially his message was this, that social justice is an errant term, that there is no social justice, there is only individual justice. That social justice implies that there's something systematic wrong with society. And even though that may be the case, that doesn't remove from us our responsibility for individual justice. For instance, what he was saying is, because there was racial injustice does not remove your responsibility from throwing a rock through a window. It's nonetheless vandalism because of individual justice. It's as much vandalism in that moment as it is if you did it randomly. That social justice would take away individual justice, that you would be able to pull a trucker out of his truck and beat him in the midst of a riot over racial injustice, that the beating in and of itself is still individual justice demands that that's still assault, that it's still violence, that it's still a crime, even though there may be social issues. So Ben Shapiro is trying to give this talk to compel people to consider individual justice, to consider. Now, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, that is a very academic dialogue. That's a very appropriate dialogue for a university. That's a very appropriate setting for people to be able to come and engage in discourse on where that's correct, incorrect. He even mentions in the speech that there's going to be a Q&A at the end. But before he can even get a word out, let me show you what happens. For those of you who are following in Radio Land, a line of protesters have moved to the front of the room and are simply yelling safety, not allowing him to speak at all. And they're protesting transgenderism, or his position on transgender. And for those of you who are not familiar with Ben Shapiro's position on transgender, it's this. He says it's a compassionate stance to mental illness. That if you are denying your biological nature, that you are in essence mentally ill, and that he doesn't have to hate you. It's not about hate, but it's about wanting you to seek the appropriate treatment. He's made these statements on CNN with Dr. Drew. He's criticized mostly for those statements. So they've shown up to one of his talks to protest his position on transgenderism. And this is not a talk on transgenderism. It's a talk on individual justice and social justice, which he gets to later after these people are finally escorted from the room because they cause a disturbance. And they escort them from the room really for their own safety, because the crowd who came to hear Ben Shapiro talk about individual and social justice was getting quite upset with the fact that these individuals were allowed their right to speech in yelling safety and interrupting, but were not allowed their right to listen and Ben Shapiro's right to speak academically. Several times during the course of this event, Ben Shapiro engages the protesters and asks them for civil discourse. Okay, let's talk about this, to where they simply yell back at him safety. In fact, he says, you're a child. You're a child. How can we have an intellectual discussion about the condition of our society and you behave like a child? Now, I know many of you don't like Ben Shapiro. You don't like what he says about transgenderism. You may not even like what he has to say about social justice and individual justice. But it doesn't change the fact that situations like this, situations like what we saw with Mike Pence, are just further evidence that civil discourse has died. If we cannot, on college campuses, engage in civil discourse, where else can we? Where else can we? Colleges are supposed to be the environments that steward academia, and academia is the process of humoring foreign ideas, new ideas, context, testing hypothesis of civil. It's supposed to be the briar patch of civil discourse. And yet a commencement looks like this. And yet a small lecture on campus looks like this. And yet at UC Berkeley, people continue to protest and pitch a fit until they get their way and people are run off. That level of refusal to engage in civil discourse will be the demise of our nation, whether it's on the right or the left. And if you are responsible for the decline of civil discourse and you are a conservative, shame on you. If you're responsible for the decline of civil discourse and you are a liberal, shame on you. You're responsible for the war, and you are responsible for the casualties of this war as we have this civil war ideologically in our nation right now. You're the ones who are responsible because of foolishness like this, because of moments where we cannot sit, listen, and engage. You know, one of the best things I've ever been to in my life was a presentation by Ravi Zacharias, who's a very popular Christian apologist. And he always invites, from the majority of his program, a Q&A from the audience. And he puts a mic in the audience, and anyone's allowed to come, ask a question, offer a criticism, and engage. His only requirement is, no, you can't just say it and walk away. You have to stick around for discussion. And I've learned in those moments with people like Ravi Zacharias that is the moment in which true learning takes place. And it's a shame that we're seeing a decline of it on our college campuses nationwide. That's all we have today here on Men Up America. Once again, you've been listening to Talk 101.3 The Buzz. I'm the good Dr. Jay Adam, WTNB Television. We're going to test out the YouTube Live thing coming up pretty soon. Until then, catch us on Facebook Live. We want to get your comments, facebook.com/manuptalk. We'll see you tomorrow.